Well, again, the lazy person's countdown. Right, so what did we do in this course? Good question. Nothing? Who said nothing? Oh. Yes. Maybe you did nothing, but I think other people might have. So what we're trying to get out of this course was really to give you an overview of computer systems, and basically it's a tie-in to the later courses, if you do them at the systems level, but also to try and give you a better feeling for what happens when a C program executes. Okay, and that would have become possibly painfully clear during the first assignment when you had to implement all of the function calling and returning protocols yourself. And by understanding what's going on at a relatively low level, C is a low level language, relatively, you can understand better what's happening when your C programs run and hopefully give you a better handle on debugging them. Right, so what did we talk about? How computer systems fit together. To some extent, how C programs execute. And remember, I talked about simple C, and we had a mapping from simple C into MIPS. Take a look at Unix system level programming, all those system calls that I talked about. An overview of how operating systems fit together. That was probably more extensive than our overview of networks, but it was meant to give you an idea of how each of those systems worked. And also a brief introduction to concurrency, because that comes into play when you're talking about networks at some level, certainly when you're talking about operating systems, when you're talking about database systems, and lots of other contexts where things happen apparently at the same time and you have to deal with it. All right, so these are all the topics that we looked at. I guess people tend to focus on the assembly programming and kind of think this is an assembly programming course, but it's not. It's really an overview of computer systems, and one aspect of computer systems is dealing with them at a low level, and that involves assembly programming. But all of that other stuff we looked at to more or less degrees, and once again people focus on the programming side of things, so the system call aspect comes into play. Just to remind you, this is how things are structured. So you've done all this coursework during the semester, well, some of it you're still doing, but anyway, that's going to result in a mark out of 40, and then we got the exam, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, but you can see that it's split into two parts, prac part and theory part. We expect that you'll go reasonably well in the exam. The fact that you've gone reasonably well on the assignments doesn't prove too much, given that maybe it wasn't you if you did the assignment. So we expect to get a reliable guarantee that you understand the stuff. We expect that you'll do well on the exam. If you stuff up the exam badly enough, and notice this is after scaling, so if things go pear-shaped in the final exam and I set an exam that's way too hard and everyone fails, then I just scale up. Of course, if you do the exam and you say, oh God, I failed, but scaling's going to save me, well, it's not if you were the only person who failed. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so if you stuff up the exam, I'm going to give you a UF, which means unsatisfactory fail, which means dismal performance in a major part of the course. Go and look it up on the my UNSW site. It gives definitions of all these marking things. Alright, so if you stuff up the exam badly enough, everything you've done here isn't really going to help you too much. But if you scrape past the exam hurdle and you want a few more marks, there's also a little bonus for the lab work. So if you do all the labs and you get all A pluses for them, then +1. If you do most of the labs and you get decent marks for them, it might be a smaller bonus. And also the blog, which I hadn't stressed, but if people have been writing them consistently since the start of semester, then little bonus for doing that as well. I don't know, you guys seem to be obsessed with these little bonuses. Somehow everyone tries to get them. Anyway, so before we get to the final exam, there is a practice prac exam coming up in week 11. That's in the week 11 lab. So we're going to have labs week 10, obviously week 9. By the way, since we got that stupid Monday public holiday in week 10, if you've got a Monday lab, just go to a different one during the week. There will be a lab exercise of some sort. I haven't decided what to do just yet. But in week 11, you also got a tute and a lab, and in the lab, you get to practice doing the prac exam. So, going to be 2 questions, one in MIPS, one in the C, both relatively small. And just to give you some practice in using the exam environment, you probably all used it in 1511, but you might have forgotten what it's like, some of the little quirks, so we'll use that in the lab. And then just so we don't get everyone on Friday getting told what the questions are, we'll have different questions for each lab class, possibly with a similar level of difficulty. And if it's not, and one class goes really badly, it doesn't matter because it's not worth much anyway. But it is worth twice as much as a normal lab. So, doing the practice prac exam is a chance for you to set yourself up for the final exam, or to realise I don't know enough to pass the final exam, so I better do a bit more work in the next few weeks. But certainly, one thing that's you really need to be careful about with prac exams is that you don't get sucked into working on a problem for too long. Now, I know what debugging's like. You can sit there and say, oh, I just got to add one more semicolon and I know it's going to work. And it doesn't work. Oh, I just got to change this. I forgot to put the star there. Now it'll work. No, it doesn't. And you can just keep doing that endlessly. And if you do that on one question, then you're losing marks on all the other questions. So what you should do, try and have some discipline, work for 40 minutes on a question. If you haven't got it out, don't worry about it. Give up on it, do the next question, and if you get the next question out in 40 minutes, then you can go back to the other one, okay? If you end up with 2 unfinished questions, well, that's a slight problem. But I think, what are we going to do this time? Certainly in the final exam, if you do a prac question and you don't get it fully working, as long as it compiles and produces some output and maybe passes a test or 2, then you'll get partial marks based on how close you are to getting a decent solution. Alright, so that's the reason why we're doing this practice prac exam, just so you get used to the environment again, or get reused to the environment. The final exam is not going to be quite the same as that. It's 1 MIPS question, 2 C questions, and the reason I say spend about 40 minutes per question in this, even though you've got 2 hours, so you've got the whole 2 hours of the lab. In the final exam, you've got 3 prac questions, and you really shouldn't spend more than 2 hours on those 3 questions. So that means roughly 40 minutes. So budget your time for 40 minutes per question. All right, final exam. So it's 3-hour exams, worth 60% of the mark, we know all that. Be held in the lab, same deal as 1511 or 1911. And once again, because there are so many of you, even though most of you aren't here, the exam will run in 2 sessions, so we got that corralling thing, blah, blah, blah. That's the times. At some point in the not too distant future, we'll ask if you got preferences for morning or afternoon, and otherwise we'll just assign you random. What else? Oh yeah, so you don't need to bring anything, just student card and a pen, because we're going to give you a piece of paper for rough work and of course to sign your name on. Alright, so what do you get in the exam? You get access to the Unix Programs Manual, because you've got a shell, you can type man, so learn how to read manual entries would be a good idea, because we don't expect you. I don't remember all of the, the order of the arguments in system calls. And one thing I never remember, fgets. I can never remember whether it leaves the new line character on the end or whether it doesn't. So I always have to do a man entry, a man lookup to find out what it's actually doing. There'll be a C quick reference sheet. This will also be available in the practice prac exam, so you can see what it looks like. So maybe you get enough information off that you don't need to go and look at the manual. MIPS quick reference sheets, which I think is already attached to the website. In fact, maybe the C quick reference sheet is as well. And we'll also give you a sheet of rough paper to write your name and your student ID and your signature on, but also for rough working. You don't really need to do a lot of rough working for this. Some people like to draw diagrams and things, so you can use it for that. But there are calculators on the workstations, so if there's any calculation required, you can use them. You don't have access to all of this stuff. Now I know that one of the schools, Eng, runs an exam where they give you open slather to access the web. That's an interesting idea, but giving you open slather to access the network also means you can send messages to each other, which probably isn't exactly what you want to happen in exams. So we lock the machines down, so it's effectively a closed book except the stuff that we give you. So there are 2 parts. There's a prac part and a theory part, but I don't want to deal with paper. I don't want to destroy thousands of trees, so that we can give you exam script books, so everything gets typed in and submitted. So there'll be a give command or a submit command, I forget what it's called. So you write the answer to your question in a file, and we'll give you templates for all the question files as well. So you just type stuff into them. When you're finished, you say submit question 6, and off your thing goes, and you're done, and you go on to the next question. And even if you forget to submit, but you've typed something into your question 6 thing, we always go through all of the working directories anyway, just in case you forgot to submit. You can partition time however you like, but I'd suggest that you allow at least 60 minutes for the theory stuff. Basically that means 120 minutes on the prac. Of course, if you're really fast programming, you might be able to do it that way. If you're in the morning session, there's no point finishing fast because you're stuck. You're not allowed to leave early. If you're in the afternoon session, yeah, sure. So if you think you're going to blitz this exam and finish in an hour, then you might want to request an afternoon slot. So one really useful thing to do before the exam is that in red, learn how to debug, and to help you with that, in week 10 I'll run one more lecture which is just going to be a demo of debugging basically. Alright, so prac exam 3, smallish programming task, 1 MIPS, 2 C, just want to check whether you actually can program in MIPS and C. The first two, the MIPS and the C programming question, are going to be similar level of difficulty to the practice prac exam. So if you go alright in that, you probably go alright in these questions. But you know, programming questions, you never can tell. You can get stuck with some annoying bug. And the last C question is going to be a little bit harder. This is for the people who are trying to get high distinctions. So we give you a check script. You can, when you write your program, you run check on it. As soon as you see test 1 passed, test 2 passed, up to whatever test N passed, they all passed, then you just say submit question 1 and you're done with that question. If you don't submit, or all that there is in your directory, or all that you submitted was a piece of junk, in particular, don't waste our time by submitting the template that we give you. That was something I should have said. We give you templates for all of the programming questions as well. But anyway, you can submit the template if you want. We're going to run some scripts that'll check whether you submitted the template and then ignore your submission. What else? Oh yeah, so yeah. Most of the questions don't lend themselves to that, but there are some, I'll have to be careful, but basically what I mean by table lookup solutions is you just look at what the input is and then you print the appropriate output. Cheap and nasty. But you don't get any marks for that, so don't waste your time. Try and solve it properly. Theory part, short answer questions, haven't decided how many. In the past it's been 6, 7 or 8, so roughly that number of questions. The kind of questions are the kind of questions that you have in tubes, basically. Maybe require some calculation, or maybe it's something like, you know, what page is going to be loaded, page is going to be loaded in this frame at t equals 4, something like that. So 7 questions on 7 different topic areas, and there'll be questions like the tutorials or the quizzes, but no multiple choice. How to revise. This is what, probably not worried about exam revision at this point, but these slides are going to be there, so go back and review them. When it comes time to revising, take a look at the lectures, go through the lecture videos at triple speed if YouTube supports that, I don't know. Have a look at old exams. I'll put up I got a sample exam and the 17S2 exam. Don't bother asking for the 18S1 exam to be put up. Take a look at the tutes and labs. As it says down the bottom, it's worth looking at those things just to get the idea of how to program, but I'm not going to recycle any questions from there. There'll be StuVac consultations with me. Maybe I'll get your Shank sitting there for doing 24/7 revision support. And practice makes perfect. Alright, sub-exams. I don't do second chance. So, I was so close to passing the final exam. I know I could have, blah, 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 blah. No. You should have passed it. If you're sick or otherwise indisposed, or you get hit by a bus on the way to the exam or something, don't attend. If you get hit by a bus, you definitely won't be attending the final exam. Put in some documentation for why you didn't attend, and make sure that by the end of semester you give me a convincing case that you've actually tried in this course. If you didn't bother submitting any of the labs, you only submitted one quiz and you only submitted assignment 1, I won't be convinced that you've taken the course seriously, and I won't be predisposed to giving you a sub, even if you didn't attend the final exam. So if you do attend the final exam, then basically I treat that as you saying, I'm in a fit state to do this. Sub-exam will be held in December. I don't know what date is the exam timetable out yet? No. Anyway, the final exam will be sometime between the 2nd and the 20th of November is the exam slot. Knowing how exams timetabling behaves, a course of 750 students will certainly be held on the 20th of November, giving me 3 days to mark. But with any luck, it'll be held earlier. Sub-exam sometime in December. And remember that UNSW expects you to be available if there's any remote reason why you might be doing a sub, like obviously you didn't attend the final exam. Don't tell me, oh, I was sick on the day of the final exam, but now I'm off in Europe skiing, so I can't take this up. Can I do it in February? No. You're meant to hang around and do it when it's scheduled, and that's UNSW requirement. Right, so what are we trying to work out here? Well, we're trying to work out how well you met the learning outcomes of the course. Now, to some extent, you've demonstrated that in the assignments and the labs and the quizzes, but this is just to make double sure. If you can't demonstrate that you have mastered the material, then knowing that you mastered the material, that's why we give you a pass. If you can't demonstrate that you have, then you don't get a pass. It's simple. And I've heard all of these reasons in the past. Oh, please, I can't fail. My parents will be ashamed. Please, I tried really hard. Yeah, that's nice. Trying really hard isn't the same as demonstrating understanding. Okay, so what we're assessing is that you understand the stuff, not that you tried to understand it. Exclusions, not my problem. If you fail this course, you probably failed a whole bunch of other courses as well. And oh well, let the dice fall where they may. This is your final course to graduate. I'd be surprised. There might be 1 or 2 people who are towards the end of their degree. And in fact, if you pass everything and you fail this course, and it really is the only course that's stopping you from graduating, UNSW has a rule that we have to give you a sub. So that's one way you can get a sub. Don't screw up the final exam just to get a sub. And it only applies to people who are potential graduates after all of their other marks are in. Right, so assessment, I get to assess you, you get to assess me and the tutors. My experience will come online in a couple of weeks' time. We always ask you to fill it out. Andrew Taylor thinks that large sample sizes are bullshit. And they introduce bias, and he'd love if we had 10% of you filling it out. But unfortunately, the university thinks that giant sample sizes are a good thing, and they want 50% of the class to fill out my experience. So that'd be nice. It's fine to tell me good things about the course, and it's here I sort of played that down a bit, but that's handy because it means I'll keep doing them. But if I stuffed something up, that's even more useful to tell me about, so I can make sure it's not stuffed up next time. Yeah, so especially for this semester, this is our last chance to fix things before trimesters start. let me know if you reckon it works in 9 weeks. Now this semester is a little bit weird because we actually have 12 weeks and I've pushed the practice prac exam into week 11. When we're running in trimesters, the practice prac exam will have to be in week 10. So we're going to lose 1 lab slot. Yeah, so let me know if you reckon we spent too much time on something or not enough time on something else. Alright, so this is just this course, assuming that you pass. Then what do you do? So, like I said before, one aim of 1521 is to give you a taste of a whole lot of different computer system related topics. Some of which you might like, some of which you might not like. If you really liked MIPS and writing assembly code, then I would consult a psychiatrist. Or you can take 2121 and 3222 and all of those other computer architecture type courses. If you thought, all right, this writing MIPS with all these prologues and epilogues on functions and all that kind of stuff, and mapping simple C into into MIPS assembler, and maybe at some point mapping real C into simple C. How does all that work, and how does GCC actually do it? There's a course where you can find that out. If you liked all the operating system stuff, then there's a couple of operating systems courses. Taking that course is not recommended if you want to keep your sanity. For example, there is one person in the room at the moment who is taking this course, and you can probably see just by looking at them what it's done to. There you go. Concurrency, we may eventually run a concurrency course again after the lecturer who taught it got sacked. Not helpful. And there's plenty of networks courses, and if you like all this shell stuff, writing scripts and so on, then do 2041 to keep Andrew Taylor happy. And here's how everything fits together. So there we are in COMP1521. Most of the later courses rely on COMP2521, the data structures course. So if you want to go on and do more comp stuff, you really have to do that at some point. How many people are doing it right now? Yeah, not bad. Good choice. It's definitely worth doing in first year, so then you get more options in second year. But actually, one decent thing trimesters do, they give a little bit of scope to, I didn't do it this semester, I can do it next semester, and still carry on with other stuff afterwards. And speaking of when you can do stuff in the future, if you want to do 1531, if you're not already doing that as well, that's when it runs. Programming will, if I have anything to do with it, not be taught by Wayne Wobke ever again, and it will run in the latter two trimesters. 2521 runs every semester. Wow, it's kind of like McDonald's or something. It just never stops. And 2121 in the first 2 terms, and operating systems. If you want to do OS, you need to have done the data structures course now.
Or in the summer.
Or you can do it over the summer, and that'll just greatly win to operating systems in term 1. Assuming it doesn't fill up like all of our courses do these days. It's depressing. Alright, so that's pretty much it, except just to remind you of all the things you've still got to do. There's another quiz coming out, assignment 2, you'll be slaving away on that over the break, I'm sure. The break, what break? I don't get a break, neither do you. Debugging lecture in week 10, another lab exercise in week 10, practice prac exam week 11, then the final exam, and then finally, then you are done with this course and you can go and have fun over the summer, and that is it.